Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting from the Extreme Studios in the Pinus Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. Part of me tonight, ladies and gentlemen, wants to talk silently and really not too hard because I've got the young 20-something Professor Pixel with me. And as a young man who knows nothing about life and the occult and history, he's in for a treat just like you are, ladies and gentlemen, because tonight we're reviewing Johnny Depp's movie that's not talked about a lot, The Ninth Gate, an occult. I'm going to call it a thriller, Pixel. I'm not even going to call it a horror film. I think it's a hell of a lot of funniness in it and in jokes and stuff. It's a film that on repeated viewing, I see more and more stuff in there that I think is kind of cool. And I think it's a first watch for you, correct?
Yeah, first watch.
Yeah. This movie is just absolutely outstanding. Before I dive in with my first thoughts, I'm actually going to hand that platform over to you before I give mine. Initial quick impressions, any particular topics or themes that you think are worthy to discuss. Sir, Ninth Gate, go. Give it to me.
I mean, normally we start out with our thoughts about this film, and that's where I'm going to go ahead and lean to. Yes, you're absolutely right. Anybody who says this is a horror movie is lying to you. This is a thriller. It's very engaging, very intriguing. I can hear Dalton in some dark corner of the world right now saying he watched it, because this is fantastic.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite films of that year, 98, 99, whenever it came out. And to me, I look at, say again?
99.
99. I've never hated Johnny Depp. I never gone Google over him. I've always appreciated the fact that he has very early on in his career, especially after starting off in 21 Jump Street and some other things, took on atypical roles. And I think that's kind of neat. This is a Roman Polanski film, ladies and gentlemen, if that matters to you. He had been around a very long time. He knows how to make a movie, and like I said, I think he has a lot of sense of humor in it too. And it's a modern film. So one of the things I've talked about with horror movies, and I'll just mention this here going into it, if it's funny, it's not scary, therefore it can't be a horror film. But this is a horror film in that on the surface, we get Johnny Depp, who's a despicable human being. Here he's a sleazebag. He does a great job at it. And he's hired by a bigger sleazebag played by, guess who? Dracula. That would be Frank Langella, who's fantastic in here, to find out, hey, I've got this book. It's got some old paintings. I need you to authenticate them for me. And basically it's why. And he's like, just because I want to know if what I have is real or phony. And what it happens to be is, but there's legends in the occult world of this book that if you have the right combination, or if you have this book, these photos in it is the ritual for how you summon the devil. And so you sound, okay, this is stupid, this is dumb, it's whatever. I hear you, but the acting in here is so well done that you can imagine it's a bunch of rich people doing it. But it's so absurd that you get people that actually get caught on fire. There's devil worshiping in here. There's potential witch occult stuff going on here. And does the ninth gate actually open at the end, the 9 gates of hell? I don't know if there's any Odontists listening to this that might offer some view on it, but I just think it's a splendid film. It's a treat to watch. And I got into this Pixel because I used to read books by this author here. He's a Spanish guy. Arturo Fuente, that's Arturo Pérez-Reverte, I believe is how you pronounce it. And he's got like historical stuff. But here's the thing. Horror films, to me, they had to change in the 60s and 70s. Instead of being like vampires and witches and old stuff, it's human beings, and how do you modernize it? And I always talk about Rosemary's Baby, which Polanski, I think, did in the late 60s, kind of modernized it, where the devil's born in like New York City, right? Yeah, I mean, and how do you modernize horror and make it real and relevant when you've got skyscrapers, electricity, and the internet and computers and stuff like that? It's hard to do, to take it seriously. This one, I think they hit a home run. Let me pause for a moment because I'm gushing here a little bit and back up and let you kind of give us any more thoughts that you want as you lead us into the beginning of the film.
I can't believe I didn't connect the dots there, because we did Rosemary's Baby, and that's a great film too. But it's exactly that cult thing. And there's only one cult movie that I really hate, but this one is great.
And what would that be, out of curiosity?
Oh, Hereditary. I despise it. I despise Hereditary.
Well, that's a conversation for another time because I actually really liked Hereditary, and I think that's interesting revisiting some of those types of films because with the occult, whether you believe in God or not, you're a Christian or you have a different religion or you're atheist or agnostic, any of those kinds of things, it's all about the telling of the story. And Roman Polanski really shows you how great he can make a film. And so here we get introduced to Johnny Depp, and he's with a couple, and unfortunately, there had been a death in the family, and they're an upper class, well-to-do family. And so they're asking him to basically give them a professional evaluation of what their collection is. So these are like limited edition type things, leather bound things, and make all the Ron Burgundy jokes you want. This is the deal. But I love books, big time reader. I had a lot of books at one point in my personal library, not so much anymore. Things are different. People don't read. But you just get this feeling of old money, and he's in there, and the couple's like, whatever. And he says, yeah, it should be this and that, but, if it's not going to, it'll cost you a little bit more if you hold out, because if you're just quick to ear with it, someone will take advantage of it or like that. And this couple doesn't know what the hell to do. And he's so clearly taking advantage of them with the way he's acting. It's so good. I never hated Johnny Depp. I've liked some movies that he's done. I think he's been pretty good. But I just think he hit a home run here because when he pulls out hey, this one thing you got here, it's kind of nice. It's worth a little bit here. I've got some cash. And he swindles them out of something early on where somebody else is going to do it. It sets up his character like we've talked about before, how you get involved in doing something. Show the character that whether or not we're supposed to root for him early on doing something, let us learn about his character by seeing him do stuff. What was your take on this whole opening gambit, sir?
Oh, well, we're going to talk about that opening gambit, not the guy going ahead and writing a letter and then hanging himself.
Well, I wouldn't call that the opening gambit. That's just like a hook.
It's not the gambit, but it does go ahead and draw you in because he's so serious during all this. And then he hangs himself, kicks the stool. He's on the chandelier, and the chandelier like pulls down, and you think it's going to come crashing down for a moment, but eventually the struggle stops, and that's when you get the title opening through the doors.
Beautiful opening. Beautiful music.
It's a very good. It's a very good opening. And then you quickly go ahead and get his character, and you still he is a sleazebag, but he's still likable.
How was he likable?
I think that's just what Johnny Depp has. He's somehow still likable despite it playing like terrible people.
Well, if you don't know who Johnny Depp is, he's been around for a long time. And I think that's some of the problems you have with casting is that in Johnny Depp's case, women love him. I don't think guys hate him. He's been okay. He hasn't come across as really whatever. But to see Johnny Depp, like I said, being a sleazebag, if you really loved him, and especially the stuff you've done up to this point as a teen heartthrob, as a young adult heartthrob, this is going against type. I love it when actors try to do that. It doesn't always work, in my opinion, but that's fine. But the one thing that's really cool about this is the way the guy uses lights, because Roman Polanski, I will simply say this, he's not been allowed to basically be in America since I think it was the 70s or whatever. So he makes his films internationally, and they're just phenomenal. And there's something mysterious about watching these old prints in books and everything there too, that it's a very sumptuous, visually stunning film. And we've talked about how a movie is supposed to be visual. Number one, the writing doesn't have to be on point, and the story itself can be boy meets girl, loses girl, whatever. Typical stories. It's how it's done, and if it matters with you. We have a case here where Depp's got a book partner kind of with him or whatever that he gets to talk to a little bit, so we get to hear stuff. And he smokes a lot here, which is just fantastic. But one scene that should start like getting your attention is early on. He goes to see somebody who's speaking, and of course, so I could say Dracula because Frank Langella made this role famous. He's been in a lot of stuff. Tremendous actor, very rich baritone, tall, striking individual. He's the guy that made Dracula to be a charming, seductive animal, not like the Hammer horror of the 50s where he was just basically a wolf and that's it. He put the seductive but physical dangerous element back in the 70s. That came out in 79. I think it's very worth watching. But he's giving a speech on somebody, and Frank Langella, just listening to him talk is a treat. And there's so many things that if you don't catch it watching it, you'll pick up on it later. Like there's a scene in here where the girl's kind of looking at him. She's got blonde hair and she's kind of hot in a dirty French sort of way, but it's a nerd thing where a bunch of people sit around while he's lecturing on something occultish because he has to talk to him about, you know, the job that he has for him. And you find out that they don't really like each other, but Johnny's like, man, Boris Balkan, I'll take your money. And he's got a fantastic, what you would call old school suit on in here with the white charcoal lines. This is Wall Street pimp style turn of the century. It's phenomenal. His glasses are phenomenal. And I don't know about you, but I mark out when I see such lusciousness in terms of settings and set pieces here, because when they go into his private chamber where he's like, you know, you're in rare territory. Not many people get to do on it. But let me ask you this, Pixel, because if, depending on your answer, this might tell a lot. There's two key things that happen in here before they get into the heart of the discussion here while he's standing there talking. There's a painting behind him of this old castle with a brilliant light behind it. And when he goes to unlock the security glass door to his book collection, the code is 666. Did you pick up on that?
No, actually, I didn't.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Oh, my God, it's so obvious. Let me pause here a little bit because, like I say, I love this movie. I'm gushing a bit. I want to see if I've sparked anything you want to comment on.
No, I love the private collection because you go ahead and you know that they don't like each other. He's saying, "I'm gladly take your money," but he's impressed. He might be quiet about it, but he goes ahead and he's loving looking at the books. But the thing is, when they go ahead and get to the key piece, oh crap, what's the title of the book? It's not just the 9 Gates. It's something else. But when they go ahead and he looks at it, this is genuine. What are you talking about? But you have Balkan telling him something's wrong. And Dean is not believing that they can actually summon the devil. That's what he knows Balkan is looking for. Balkan's not laughing at that. He's very serious about all of it.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's easy for Dean to go ahead and just laugh this off at the start, at least. But yeah, he'll do the job. He looks at the check. Okay.
For some reason, people talk about like ad-libbing in comedies and playing off each other and capturing magic on there. There's something about an exchange they have in here which just jumps out to me. And, you know, and while I'm loving Johnny Depp's sleaziness in here, and it's a nice stark contrast to this rich guy in his private book collection here, I love how they show you these pages, which has, I don't know if that's Latin, but old writing, and these prints in them. And the prints tell a story. So the idea is that I think it was a 1666 Venice. Well,
yes.
At the time, you know, one of the richest places in the whole world, a lot of old money back there. If you've ever been to Venice, you can feel it and see it. But a lot of occult stuff kind of going back to Europe at that point is that, hey, you know, we took these prints and we put them in a book, but we actually, to make them survive so you wouldn't lose it by one book, you would make copies of different books. So Balkan is like, hey, man, something's not right here. So I think they're inauthentic. What's going on? And Johnny Depp's staring at him. And if you watch them too, I feel like they're ad-libbing because Johnny Depp, he kind of like takes the book and he likes looking at it. And he does the page flip thing, right? Where he just listens to it and he goes, you know, the pages even sound authentic. And I'm like, I don't know why. There's just something about the slowing down of them getting into it. They're not rushing through the scene, you know?
That's one thing I do have to say, because anybody that is a book collector or something like that that's going to have these ancient tomes, they're not using gloves. And while I get why a cultist might not, Dean is not a cultist. This is his job. He should understand that going ahead and just touching it raw is not something a typical collector would do.
Yeah. I think it's a nice setup. This movie is well over 2 hours long. It's maybe 2.5, let's say, up to 2.5, definitely more than 2. It takes its time. It's a no rush. it moves at a certain pace, and it's something you have to be used to.
Yeah.
So settle in if it's the kind of film you like. I think it can grow on you because it gets more absurd as it goes on, and you don't know whether to go, oh my God, this is serious, because the music's very particular. The way they're acting is, there's no grand conflicts that you see. It really is like a detective thing, and it literally draws you in for a while too. We're gonna get to a point here where we're gonna be talking about how Johnny Depp seems like, even though this guy's a fucking sleazebag early on, all the other people he meets is a friggin' weirdo, and even worse than him. We just don't see it yet. That's the beauty of how the story unfolds. So then Johnny goes and he's meeting with the wife of the man who hung himself at the beginning of the film. And that's played by Lena, Olin, who's been in some stuff. She carries herself in a very regal, old school sort of approach. The way she looks at him, and she's wearing all black, by the way, and it was in this room and stuff. This is just a great acting scene here too. And I just, maybe I'm giving it too much credit, but we know we're going to see more of her. And then where things start getting a little mysterious is when he goes to the library and he's looking at these paintings, and they give the illusion of him being there for a long period of time. He thinks he sees that blonde student looking at him somewhere that he can't seem to find, watching him, that he did when he went to go see Balkan. So you see that there's some mysterious music, and he starts getting those vibes, and he tells his partner, hey, can you hold on to the book for me? You know, and that's something we're going to squirrel away. So I like this. He may be sleazy, but Dean Corso is smart. And of course, he immediately, this is like Hitchcock, all these characters, you get put in a weird situation. He gets a visit paid to him, by Lena Olin, who's like, hey, I don't know how you got that book, but it was my husband's, and I want it back. I'll do anything with it. She, he has her pours him some scotch. She's like, you can even have me too. And she hikes up the skirt on her outfit, right? And I'm like, this is dangerous. This is deadly. He's going, man, I want to tap that ass. I don't care. You see, and again, I'm not a religious historian. It's not the Ouroboros, it's the snake eating its own tail, the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, all that biblical kind of stuff. But it is a snake that has a couple things to it. So I'm sure that's a specific sign that some people in our audience may know that. I don't know. But of course, what happens, and this is where it starts getting funny, they make sweet love there on the floor, whatever, after having their drinks, and she's like, all right, give me the book. And it's like, yeah, I don't have it. And she's like, well, fuck you. And he's like, well, I just did. But she brains his ass.
No, she says, don't fuck with me, and her best possession voice.
But it's funny. He's in his shorts and everything to go wrong and all that too. She comes at him like she's just an animal and stuff like that, bites him and everything. This is hysterical to me. I thought this was funny. What did you take of this?
Yeah, no, the scene is striking because she does that devil cry and attacks him. But no, once she does finally go away, and then he goes to visit his friend. I can't remember his name.
His buddy. His buddy. His work buddy.
Yeah, his buddy, who he goes to for not for leads or anything, but in his line of work. So he goes to him, and he's going to get, because that's where he put the book. But he goes there, and guess what? His friend is dead.
But how is he dead? Let me ask you that.
I actually don't know. So he's hanging from the spiral staircase, and his foot is caught in an electrical wire wrapped around it. He's hanging from there, and blood is dripping. I didn't see like a gash on the neck or anything, so I don't know exactly where the.
If you watched Hannibal, the television show, which I did with Mads Mikkelsen in it, we would the killings that would get investigated. A lot of times they would call that a tableau, where it's staged, where you kill somebody and you represent it in a certain way and do stuff with it, and there's the psychology aspect of it too. Or the hint I was giving you about, did you notice the picture in the background while Boris Balkan was talking, and the 666 in his lair, and then of course the book showing you some of these key scenes? Because as we find out, if you don't realize all the little intricacies to it, He calls Balkan. He's like, "Hey man, shit's going down." He's like, "Yeah, I get it. It's not supposed to be easy. I'll make it worth your while. Keep going." He goes and he visits these brothers, and it's obviously a filming technique. These twins, how they talk to each other and stuff.
Yes.
But if you don't know by now, you see it and hear it. And this is the beauty of this simple storytelling. Show people. They pull out one of the pictures in there, and the guys are like having a great time showing this guy Dean Corso what the deal is with it. And they have the old school magnifying glass, and they say, "Okay, look who drew this one." I was like, "What do you mean?" "Well, the initials. Who's the artist?" "LCF." And he's like, "Yeah, really? Is that supposed to be Lucifer?" And they're like, they don't say nothing, but he's like, "Whatever." But you find out that some of the other prints in the book seem to be signed by a different artist, let's say. So which ones are real? Which ones are fake? And so that's kind of interesting, because you start realizing that, oh, wait, in one of them, the guy's climbing up and the gate is open on one of the doors, another one it's closed. Oh, wait, another one, somebody's hanging upside down like the guy that just died. So some of these prints are coming up. But to make things even more mysterious to me, as he's writing down his 3x3 matrix on a train, he's met by somebody. And who would that be, sir?
Oh, you mean the girl?
Mm-hmm. I call her the student, the blonde student.
I was mostly going off of what they go ahead and call her, which is just the girl, but no, the student works. Yeah, no, and she is a lovely young woman.
That's the director's wife, by the way. She starred in Frantic with Harrison Ford, which really put Polanski on the map for me back in 1988 or 89. I highly recommend that film as well. I mean, we may have covered that here on the Extreme Movie Show. Certainly would have made my top 10 list for that year, much like this movie did. I'm sorry I interrupted you, sir. Please continue.
I lost my train of
girl.
thought. But you know what? Fine that I lost my train of thought, because they're on a train.
And trains are romantic. They're old school.
Yeah, no, it's very nice. They go ahead and they do speak to each other. He's going to see a guy named, oh man, what is his name? It's first guy that got Kessler.
Kessler. No, Liana Telfler is the lady we just met.
No, I was talking about the guy.
It's Victor Fargas. You're talking
Fargas. That's who I meant. Yes. Yeah. Yes. And he is very protective of his book.
Yeah, he has a copy of it, so he's trying to go to each of the people just to look at their copies. So he's going to see Victor Fargas, and this is in Portugal, so it's like a Bond movie, right? We're traveling to different places around the world and seeing very unique things, coming across very interesting people. Yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
And he goes ahead. He does get to take a look at it, but he is not allowed to take it. He says he's not going to give it. He's not going to sell it. There's nothing that he can do. And he does go ahead and give a call to Balkan to say, hey, he's saying no. And Balkan goes ahead and tells him, well, I gave you money to do anything. I want that book by any means necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't have to really worry about that. He gets woken up the next day by the girl saying, you should visit Fargas again. They go to his property, and what is he doing? He's drowned in the koi pond.
I know, right? Now,
but he had inside, because the girl like climbs up and unlocks the door, lets him in, and he has all these books lined up in a row. And what does he have with that book? He tossed it in the fire to burn it. And it burnt a good portion of it, but some was still able to be salvaged.
Yeah, what I liked about the scene here on the train is obviously this is intentional. We've seen this girl, I guess, following him. It's no accident she keeps running into him, right? And if you're him as a guy with a beautiful woman always showing up, you might feel attracted to her and want to, hit on her and all this kind of stuff. But he's so paranoid with everything that's going on, and that's just his character. He's a sleazebag. He knows something's not on the up and up. I like this aspect that he's portraying this character. So again, sleazy but smart, but also a bit cynical about how people are, because he deals with a lot of rich people that have these, really strong vices to them and all that. And so are they really better? I don't know. And for me, again, you're on a train, you can hear the train going. There's just like something romantic. Romantic, I mean, in the classic sense, not romantic, not as a male-female relationship, but just as an old world sense to it. You're traveling to Portugal, absolutely stunning countries, one of the most beautiful looking ones on the planet Earth. It's phenomenal. And so he meets with this older guy who's got this really nice old place, and it's in disrepair. So again, something like that has a history behind it. We don't know what it is, but showing it to us is kind of interesting, because this guy's basically there just to be by his book collection, and that's it. He knows he's old and he's getting ready to die, and yet there's something more regal about this guy that's not sad. You don't go, oh, this is an old man clinging on to the last little bit of his life, leave him alone, he's a loser. There's not. And the fact that he and Depp have an honest exchange talking, and he has to figure out how to appeal to the guy and be genuine about it, is kind of cool. Like there's a mutual respect there somehow, but it's not just given, you have to earn it. And he does by explaining to him about the book and allows him to see it. So this is patient, mature writing that you don't always get. And then of course it really hits the fan when the place is on fire and he's got the book and he's calling Balkan again. And by this time, Balkan's even getting shorter on the phone by saying, hey, do a good job, I'll double it. Add another zero to it. He's done talking to him. The more and more we see that character, the less and less talking we see. We don't know if he was almost accidentally run off the road as things slow down intentionally. But we get an interesting scene here where, again, she drives him to the place. And it's kind of sad in a way because, the guy's obviously dead. Who did it? Did she do it? Is she working for Balkan? All these things going through her head, and he just knows he's trying to do this job. He knows he can't stop, so what are you going to keep doing? I don't know if he feels threatened, but his instinct of figuring things out, I find to be interesting, and you don't have to show the guy dying. You just see him walking on some broken glass and seeing the guy in that set, and then she follows him, right? And so it's an hour in. Huh?
Where do we go? We go to France.
Paris. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another
Baroness,
odd adventure, right?
Huh?
Yes, Baroness Tessler. Yes.
Yes. And she has a lot of personality to make up for her missing limbs.
But when you hear her, they have a conversation early on that he fails to kind of strike any relationship with her. Did any of that stick out to you?
Well, no, it's not that to me, because I do feel like she's very intrigued by this, by Duke, jeez, by Dean. She's very interested in Mr. Corso, but when he realizes who he works for, she sends him out, points with her stub to the door, get out. And he's pretty certain, okay, well, the journey's going to stop here. He gives a call, and Balkan goes ahead and says, no, by any means necessary. You must do this again. Go. So what does he do? He doesn't just go ahead, try knocking on the door, waiting outside. Instead, he collects information from the two books that he has, and he sets up his pitch. He gets to have another meeting with her, and she is very, very disinterested, doesn't really care, until he says that, I believe that all three of these are real.
Yes.
They're all authentic.
Yes.
3 books that you need all together. And she changes her tune completely. She says, all right, yes, you absolutely can look at my copy. Take all the time you need. He goes into the library, pulls out a cigarette to start studying, and she's like, I didn't say you could do that. No one smokes in my library. And he starts going through the book, and then he gets knocked out.
Yeah, it's escalating.
He's been knocked out over the head.
Yeah, what I liked about the first introduction is whenever you're dealing with people of power, usually you have to deal through several layers to get to them. And in this case, he goes up to the building, which is just off one of the main thoroughfares in France. And I've been to Paris. Downtown is kept usually very clean. I cannot speak to how things may look today with the way things have gone in the world and all that. But 20 plus years ago when I went, actually a year after the Ninth Gate came out, before 9/11, they were redoing everything. It was absolutely stunning, beautiful. The outside was horrible, but you know, Paris is a very old, very rich city in terms of history and arts and all that too. So the way that Polanski is able to capture what does Portugal look like or feel like, what does a big city like New York look like, I think he nails it here with the stuff, because it feels like you go from the outside to him walking up the stairs, and that's what it's like in these nice buildings. But the lady that's her secretary is, I would assume, obviously lesbian. I don't know if that's supposed to be very obvious, but she's the muscle literally, and she ain't putting up with any shit from John. You know, like, it's funny because he keeps meeting all these women that could like beat his ass. And so again, it's kind of funny, but also too, you made a comment early on that she's got such a big personality. She's dressed impeccably. That's how you dress if you're an older woman, conservatively yet attractively. They spared no expense making everybody look just phenomenal in here. And you made the comment that she makes up for her non-working limbs for that. But we could sit here and just know that, oh, he's just charming and smiling and she's just trying to whatever. Sometimes you have to let people that, I'm not going to say rich, but high up on the food chain, they have an ego. You need to have it to get there. So you let them tell you what's important to them. So he let Balkan tell him what was important to take the job. He's curious himself, just from that perspective, but he wants to get paid. He doesn't believe in any of this shit.
No.
He had to let Victor Fargas, the older gentleman, who was not a sad fellow by any means, tell him what's important. Came to an understanding. He's doing the same thing here. His character is smart. And for me, her and all that, once she finds out, like you say, she's like, no. So it's getting harder and harder for him to get access to all this. And we're only halfway through the movie, and he almost has all the access. What could possibly happen? Well, we'll continue with that. What I liked about this, though, is if instead of watching them acting and it's cutting to a single camera shot of him looking down and her looking up, you don't see them on the same screen talking with each other. I think what that does, and I haven't really thought about this analytically, but it makes you almost ignore what she's saying. Because like I told you at the very beginning, they're showing you during the opening screen after the guy kills himself, gates opening, right? Is it 9 of them? I'll let you count that. We saw the 666. We saw this building with Balkan. Okay. We saw her basically saying, yeah, when I was a young girl, I met the devil. It's like a euphemism for like a bad boy or an older man that she had sex with or something. The devil's usually portrayed as an older, wise man who knows his way around the world. We get that in other films too, for the people that are really into that sort of storytelling. Not many, but some. And you're right. She has to be convinced, and he has to adjust his approach. And so I thought it was kind of funny, but it's obvious if you're watching this, and this is not to make fun of anybody that may have any sort of condition and all that. There's definitely something about people, for lack of a better term, that have some sort of crippled effect to their body that is in here. You see it early on. You see it here. You may see it later. It's something he put in there. I don't know why. I just know it's there. But we do see this one dude that's basically watching Johnny Depp from a distance. And so he's sitting in a cafe, getting his drinks and all that, and he's got the cigarettes there, and it's a great shot. He's lighting up a cigarette, and then it's turning into dusk or whatever like that, and then that inside lights or outside lights come on, and so the guy kind of disappears, and you see his reflection there. That's just a great movie making. I don't care if you like the movie or not. That's the type of stuff that I love when a director says, man, I'm gonna make this look good, because now he can't see outside and has to leave. But to your point, through any means necessary, right? So he starts walking. He's being walked by this girl. Then this is when it flips to other side of the coin. he's walking along and again, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, the Champs-Élysées, the main river there, the walkway, not the Champs-Élysées, so the Seine River. And he's walking up the stairs. The guy appears by light, chases him down. And this is exactly what the river looks like at night. And a guy is trying to wrestle the bag away from it. And the blonde student girl that's been following him, young woman, you see her floating down there and takes the guy out and rescues him. What do you make of all that?
Yeah, no. So the student, as we're going on her, yes, I kind of like her as this other force that's kind of just helping him along.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the idea of all these people dying around him, maybe it's her trying to get him the books. But I forgot. I was just about to go into the next step. Because after he gets hit in the head, he wakes up and he's like, Baroness? Because you hear the of the wheelchair, and it's running into the same corner of the room. And he goes over, and it turns, and she's dead. Her face is like, her eyes are open, but her tongue is like wagging out like a dog, and her head is tilted. It's very freaky. And because she's turning around, she rushes for the door. It opens, and she just crashes into a table on fire.
Yeah, it's the one almost sinister thing that happens right before this is the fact that when they go back to his room or whatever, because he's smart enough to like make photocopies of stuff and all this, is she goes up there and she blood marks him. He's got a little blood dripping out of his nose or whatever, or she does whatever, and she like marks his forehead with a symbol, and you look at her eyes and they kind of change color slightly, and that's it. And she's kind of smiling. They don't make sweet love or anything like that. There's no sex or whatever. But when he goes to retrieve it, you're like, man, it's definitely different. And he just knows it is, but you see him responding to the here and now. I've got to come here for the book. And when they show the graph paper he's got with the 3x3 grid on it, so for each of the books of the 9 things in each one, which one has which artist markings. If you don't know what that stuff means, or it's not easy to understand what they're trying to say, I like how he shows it to you in addition to people talking to you, and they take your time with it. Make it easy for your viewer to understand what's going on if they so choose to pay attention to it. And I think he does that here. So when he does get it, it's kind of like funny, not funny, that here she is dead with her tongue sticking out, rolling around. Here she is, this proud woman of culture that's seen a lot in her lifetime, certainly a big personality, as you said. But of course, when the out of control wheelchair makes its way through the door and it's on flames, well, again, it's getting more real now. It's not just getting beat up. It's the real deal. Again, where is this going? You don't know. We're an hour and a half in. We've got about 34 minutes left. I don't know. And this is what Polanski does so well. It's the same thing in Frantic, where Harrison Ford is a guy that is with his wife, and they fly over to Paris. He's a doctor. They're having a conference. You have travel fatigue. You get to your nice hotel room. She goes to take a shower. She's in there. He drifts off to sleep. Wakes up a few hours later, and she's just not there. And it's just him trying to find her, and
he's frantic about it.
You could say that or whatever, because that's the Grace Jones theme song, which is a tremendous song. But Paris is really great. And Polanski knows Paris very well. I think that's what helped him out in this film here. But they get into the sports car because they're going to go check out this place, and
because his book is stolen. It's been stolen. And they do have their lead, though. Mm-hmm. It's the woman at the beginning, the "Don't fuck with me" lady.
Mm-hmm.
And they follow and make their way to her ancestral home, where she meets her group that we actually did get to learn a little bit more from Kessler before she died. But you can see they're watching through the window as she's getting dressed. She's putting on her dark robe, ready to
It's a giant
go.
mansion that you've seen. I think this is the mansion that they make that was in Batman. That's an all. Anytime you need a giant mansion in the hillside, it's filmed here. It's that one, you know.
Yes, and I honestly thought that they were going to wait until she was gone, but he doesn't really. He just pushes in the window to the opening doors and just lets himself in because he wants the book back. But that's when another cultist comes in. This black guy with like bleach.
He's a guy that's been following Depp for a while. That's her henchman.
Yes, and he has a gun, and it looks like okay. Well, he's going to take you away now. Nice try. Bye. But this is actually where Johnny gets to go ahead and show a little action. He has it in him to go ahead and overpower the guys. They're going down the stairs.
Yeah, this scene is important in that it's not just okay, maybe they're cultists and they got this book and they're going to do their ceremony thing or whatever like that. The guy comes around the corner and he's visibly wearing the pentagram in and of itself isn't necessarily a cultish. Somehow it's how you use a symbol that makes it have certain connotations to it. And clearly they have the pentagram with the one star facing down, I guess. And I mean, obviously, you're not going to make a mistake showing that if you're into a cult or whatever, but they do it. But the thing is when he, for your, like how you described it, overpowers the guy down the stairs, the blonde student sitting there watching, she's like, oh, I'm glad you have that in you, because he's bashing the dude's face. And we never see him get physical, right? We've seen women beat him up, right?
Yeah.
So she's getting, not turned on, I wouldn't say sexually aroused, but she's excited at his transformation. It looks like, hey, you've got this in you. And then of course they walk in there. She hasn't bothered to change, but he's put on a robe. They're sneaking up. They're looking down from the second floor to where they're having the ceremony like that. And it's like, what the hell are you going to do? And at this time it goes crazy because Balkan shows up.
He just walks in.
That's tremendous.
He's like,
because they all know each other.
Yeah. He's like, you fools. What the hell are you doing? And you, Lynette, Lenora, whatever your name is, you should know better. You know what kind of power this has. And what does he do? He strangles her.
It's beautiful. And then at the end, he's got the hairs messed up because he's an older guy, right? I mean, he's like 60 or something in here. Now physically, he's actually a big guy. He's like 6'3". He's got a great stature, but he's a book guy, and he strangles her. They look so, and it's all these rich people probably. They're all holding the black burning candles and all that. And then what does he do? He goes, boo! And they all kind of like freak out and run. It's so silly in a way, right? But you're believing that, you know what? You know, these rich fuckers are having these kind of parties and doing this kind of stuff. This movie I actually think came out before Eyes Wide Shut did, which had a lot of cult stuff in it, similar to this, a little bit later, although a different perspective. But I thought it was tremendous. You got two rich people that each had copies of the book. They're fighting over it, and we know what the book is supposed to do. She's trying to figure it out. It doesn't necessarily happen there. You're like, oh, come on. But seeing a moment there, Johnny's like hops in or whatever, and I don't know how absurd this is because he strangles her, right, with the pentagram right in the throat. She says don't kill him, because she's getting ready to do it. She floats down again, stops him from doing it. What's her angle in it? Because she's falling around, nobody seems to see her or interact with her or look at her. I'm just putting it out there. When you watch it, maybe you notice that, maybe you don't. But again, we're about 2 hours in. Is this our third act? It's kind of not. It's leading up to that. But right after he says boo and all that, what's going to happen next?
Yeah. So Balkan has his books. Mm-hmm. He has everything he needs. So he goes to a It's a castle. Mm-hmm. Another castle.
It's the same castle as the one we saw in the photo at the beginning.
Yes. It's the same one in the photo, not the same one as we've already been to before. But he goes ahead, he finds his way, and yes, he goes to the castle where Balkan is setting everything up. He has the books, the pages all laid out. He's ready, and then he looks up and looks a little further up, and there's Johnny staring down at him. And he comes down, and Balkan's like, "Well, here's the thing. This is for me to do. It's not our fate. So you're going to have to go now." But Corso is obsessed now. He pulls out a gun. He's like, "No, I'm not going to let you do that." But he drops his bag and he lets that distract him. And so
before you get to the ending, I want to catch up to that. So just pause when you need a moment.
Okay, I'm pausing.
Okay. What I liked about some of the scenes in this film is the ones that are small scenes, like the interaction that him and Balkan had, where I felt like they were ad-libbing. This is another one, besides the blood marking, where, although that was more obvious here, in one of the books, he had a postcard that has this same picture of that castle, right? That has this big light shining off of it. And so he stops at a small little roadside place to get something to eat, some drink. Those people aren't speaking English. And this is what happens if you ever traveled. You just point to something and then people try to help you out and all that. So it's nice because he's a stranger in a strange land, does not know what's going on here. And so they show it to him in his traveling thing or whatever like that, and he goes to it. So yes, he goes to meet Balkan. Balkan's got the 9 pages. Is it going to open up the 9 gates of hell? And here's the thing that I'm going to say, and yes, it's a spoiler alert, even though we're still got a lot to talk about this film. This is not the end of the film. You think it would be. But what I love about Balkan here, the way he plays it straight. And despite everything that's gone on, despite their disdain for each other, or there's some mutual beneficiary type of relationship they have, him paying him to get books knowing they're both sleaze bags, he basically tells them, hey, look, you really don't know what the hell you're getting into. You need to get out. The rich person, high society guy is telling the average Joe, you don't belong. And yeah, they struggle for the gun, and it's kind of silly that Depp gets kind of like stuck in like the, I don't know what you call it, the corner of the castle or like that, where the stairwell kind of thing there, where he gets to watch. They had to figure out a way so he could be forced to watch what's about to happen. And what I think is absolutely absurd in the sense I didn't see it, and I will tell you, you could say it's funny in a joke. I think his acting is so good here. How do you play this straight? Because that's what you do. Balkan turns his back to him and starts going through the whole thing. He's got a big jug of gasoline there and an old lantern, and he lights his fucking self on fire.
Yeah, because he goes ahead, he poured a circle around him with the gasoline, and he's like, I feel the power coursing through me.
And you're saying it camp-wise, but this is not camp. That's how good he's acting in my opinion.
But his hand dances over the flames. He's like, I feel nothing. It's great. It really is.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
He's such a good actor. He's got such a powerful aura in his voice to him. When he's sitting there going, yeah, I can feel the power coursing through my veins, and he's running it through the fire. Was there a part of you up to this point going, maybe it's going to work?
No.
Okay. Just checking.
Absolutely not.
But they did a good job of making you believe it could.
His hands over that fire. He was lost in his own delusions. I was like, okay, nope, this isn't it. And there's gasoline. He's dead, Jim. And it's sad. It's sad. It gets to the point where
it's pathetic in a way, but awesome. You know what? If you're an actor, this is the scene you want. And it takes some balls to try to do this, in my opinion, and try to be serious about it, because he does. It's phenomenal.
And that's when Corso falls through the floor. He takes the stairs back up, and he grabs the pages quickly before they're in the flames. He then picks up the gun, and he mercy kills.
Right. So we go from him getting beat up by women, by being a complete sleazebag, robbing people. He gets in the car. It's at night. He lights up a cig, because that's what you do after you kill somebody. and a student's in there.
Yes.
She takes his glasses off. He's kind of startled because he hadn't seen her on this little mini journey here and all that. And then we start to find out what really this is all about, or at least a way of looking at it too. She looks at him and she's got her eyes there and are doing this glowing thing or whatever like that. The sun's getting ready to come up. And while the castle's burning in the background,
they canoodle.
No, they don't canoodle. She's basically like a succubus on top of him, stealing his soul is how it's supposed to be.
Okay.
And you see her eyes changing. This is not them fucking or having sex. This is life transference from one body to another in a ritual. This is the ritual. He's been played the whole time. That's the significance of it.
I mean, but
you see her eyes changing while she's on him. That's classic. That's one of the photos in there. That's an old thing about life and seed being stolen and taken over. It's what happened in Rosemary's Baby.
But I mean, he is still there.
I understand that. That's not the point.
And he does get what he wants. He wants to find the gate at that point.
Correct.
And
gate's a woman's legs. I'm not being facetious there, because that's kind of what it is here. It's the physical manifestation of spiritual evil. How do you get it into the physical world around you? And usually it has to be by something like that, right? I mean, that's literally what it means. And that's the whole thing about women being evil, men being innocent, women taking advantage of men letting that happen. And again, religion is its own thing, whatever, but that's kind of what they're alluding to here. But you don't see that she's with him the whole time, but then this happens, right?
Yeah, I do see what you're saying.
But what happens? Because this is not the end of the movie. After they have it.
No, after they have it, they stop by a gas station because he wants the final page, because that's what it was. One of the markings weren't right; they were incorrect, and that's why he couldn't get to the gate. And he wants to find it, and while they're stopping for gas, she disappears and leaves a note to visit those same brothers.
These are brothers, right? Yeah, the twins with the funny filming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They go ahead and they go to. He goes there, and they are not loading in, moving this one wardrobe. The rest of the shop is pretty much clear.
Mm-hmm.
And pages end up falling in.
And it's a page of, do you remember the picture?
Yes. It is.
It's her.
It's her. It's the girl that has been with him not with him this entire time, but been with him throughout this. And we actually see a picture like this earlier, but now it's all the more clear that it's her.
Yes.
And at that point, you go ahead. He looks at the picture of the castle, and it merges into the real castle, where he approaches and the gate opens, and then light consumes the screen.
Yeah, it's interesting because those two guys, the twin brothers, they were older. So all three people that possessed the book around the world, they all knew through their own life's experience, the history behind it and what was going on. So they had their viewpoints about it, but it was interesting because it's one of those things that starts off one way, then it becomes like a mystery, and then it becomes a thriller. Then you get in a little bit of a chase thing into it. You have some sex and some violence, but nothing gratuitous, really. You get a lot of different locations with it. It's a very fun movie to watch to me. And it's, like I said, got a sense of humor with some of the scenes to it, but yeah, it's more of a thriller than a horror. The occult angle is interesting because rich people that follow the occult, some people say, hey, back when the occult got really popular with Aleister Crowley, or even before, it was rich people that had nothing better to do with their time than do drugs and have orgies. That was just a way of passing it through by the way the majority of the populations around the world wouldn't have the ability to do that. And, they do it through the guy's religion. So things get hidden in something else. Much like some people would suggest communism was born of people that were affluent, that didn't know any better, and just thought, well, it's simply made it that the state should be able to control everything, not the individual. And that's what makes America so different. That got born out of a time about 200 years ago when you actually had a middle class. Up till then, you didn't. So people took the occult very seriously. And some argue that the rich people in the world are involved in all that because it's a secret society, not necessarily religious wise, but you get into all the Illuminati, New World Order, Freemason stuff and all that. And whether you believe in any of that stuff or not, I don't know that if it helps in this movie, but I think for me, just watching this film is it's a lot of fun. It's a beautiful film to look at. It's very patient. I don't feel like I'm being forced to believe something I don't have to. Again, when you watch it more than once, you see some of these things that you missed before, and you're like, oh, it's right there in front of me. Oh, I don't have to listen to every line of dialogue. I can see what's going on. And knowing this, when I watch it, oh, that's why she didn't interfere. Maybe she's like a familiar and not allowed to. Maybe she's like an angel of death or an angel of heaven on your shoulder that's there and can give you guidance. And maybe, I don't know. There's a lot of ways you can do it. And somebody like Polanski is smart enough to just present it to you and let you fill in the blanks, which always makes it a little more interesting. In many ways, Pixel, this reminds me of when we did the first season of Twin Peaks here on the Extreme Movie Show, where we had a hint of a killer. It was a deconstructive type of thing where who killed Laura Palmer wasn't really the story. It was just the setup for the fact that she's not a very nice girl, is involved with some nasty, dark-ass things. And there's these different things of the occult versus possibly mystical things going on in the physical land that they're in, bad guys, drug dealers, prostitution, just all sorts of nasty ass shit. And that's what Lynch would let you fill in, rest in peace, with Twin Peaks. And of course, he'd flesh it out during season 2, Fire Walk with Me. And then of course, season 3, The Return, which we also have covered. But yeah, this movie's pretty fun. I know RDV's shitting on it in chat. Generally, even if we don't like something, we try to talk about what we liked or didn't like, or even yet from the technical perspective, what worked and what didn't. So I want to give the floor to you for a little bit because I've been gushing way too much about it, but I really love this film. And it was a suggestion for us to do, and it's always been on the short list, but I just didn't think anybody would want to do it. So I was thinking I would go solo, and I'm glad you were able to join me tonight with it too. So let me let you expound on a few points before we wrap it up.
Yeah, I almost didn't have time to, and you know what? I would have really regretted that. This film is a journey, and I do like films that can be like that. I really did enjoy myself. I could definitely see myself rewatching it if we wanted to do another review of it, let's say next year or year after. It's definitely something I will revisit at some point. I really do enjoy it. But that being said, it is time for us to wrap up. I gotta go.
Yeah, anything you need to plug or you need to mention?
Oh, Geeky Puppet Show. There are readings tonight. We're going to be doing them. They're going to be good.
Yeah, I want to thank you guys for showing up for the review. Obviously, we do put on a short list, and of course, we do have a poll up for now for types of films you want us to watch right now. The martial arts films on the poll have pulled ahead. Before that, it was classic films. So we just put some stuff up there to do it. Our schedule has been bounced around here. RDV is out tonight, so we should be back to a full slate next week with RDV and I doing something. So we'll see what goes on. And of course, next week we'll have another poll. Thanks, guys, for watching, listening, sharing the stream out, letting people know we exist, spending time together, going over stuff. Hey, even if you hate something or you think it's stupid, we just try to go off the cuff here a little bit and explain what we like. The more you listen, the more you find out what we like. I think sometimes it's easier for you guys to decide, hey, what is it that I might like? Because I like to say we're a station here that has 3 generations of perspective on her. Me, the 80s guy, RDV, the 90s guy, Pixel, the aughts guy. So it's a lot of fun. Ninth Gate certainly was. I highly recommend it. Right now it's free on Tubi TV here in America. I put the link in early in the chat. Check it out. And for Professor Pixel, RDV, thank you for the work you're doing behind the scenes. Good night now.
This was not a Dan Curtis production. Good night. Did you end?